You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Mission Log Engage here on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, where we talk about the comments and the messages and the emails that you send us. And it is the end of the week. We have covered so many things, but we decided to save the very best for last. I'm Norman Lau.
And I'm John Champion. And you know what? I like to think that they're all the best. They're all... We get so many excellent, worthy comments. And you know what? We kind of joke to each other like, oh, we'll do an easy one this time. Well, we'll have just a nice light comment. But I think it speaks to the kinds of discussions we try to have on Mission Log, that we get thoughtful, provocative, sometimes mind-blowing comments in return.
Let me rephrase then, John. Forgive me, audience, but let me rephrase that and say we have saved the only one for Friday, which is the best for last.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. This is the only best Friday last email. Yes. Something like that. All right.
Perfect.
All right. So what we have today is an email from Jean, and Jean says, "Hello, Norm and John. First of all, I promise that I'm not trying to write in on every single episode, but you guys just keep saying stuff that prompts me to comment. In episode 447, Heroes and Demons, Norm said something about lessons being taught either through religion or folklore, and that in Beowulf, it's folklore. As someone of a religious mindset, I have to ask where the line is between the two. You see, the characters in Beowulf are practitioners of my religion, which is referred to as heathenry or Norse paganism. So to me, this is a religious lesson and not one from folklore. Now, I know you guys are not disposed to look at the religious aspects of things, which I'm fine with. I'm just curious as to what your definitions are when things like this come up."
And that's a fair question. And you know what?
Totally, yeah.
Maybe I need to just redefine. And I apologize if that came off as being either unintelligent or insensitive or uninformed. So as I have done in other avenues of my perspective on religion on Mission Log, I will make that correction, that apology very simple. I believe that religion and folklore are one and the same thing. So I don't really have that distinction, because religion is take for the Bible, for example, or take any documented amount of religious history that's been created in a way that is, created in either parable form, oral tradition, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are learning moments, traditional learning moments of how to teach people about their faith. Now, it can't be scientifically proven that anything like this ever happened or will happen, nor can I discount it as saying that it's not obviously important to somebody who believes in that it teaches them messages and morals and meetings, etc.
Kind of like Star Trek.
Exactly. But is Star Trek religion or Star Trek folklore?
I hope it's not a religion, but it could be to some. Yeah.
So that's kind of like where I stand with it. It's, for me, it's one and the same, because you obviously can derive from it something that makes your life meaningful and better and puts you on a good path to do the right thing or the righteous thing. But at the same time, though, I think that in my stance of things, I am leaning more towards the scientific things of the scientific principle. And that doesn't necessarily lean into how I see what I said about religion or folklore in Heroes and Demons.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we go strictly by the dictionary definition, I think that folklore is specific to stories that are handed down by oral tradition as opposed to, written tradition. But at the same time, obviously, there could be a folklore tradition or there could be a written tradition that speak to religious beliefs and the religion of others. So certainly don't want to be dismissive of the idea to say, well, it's just folklore, therefore nobody believes it. That's obviously a fallacy. That's incorrect, as Jean is pointing out to us here. So yeah, absolutely echoing you, Norman. I will say that in the interest of inclusion in that respect, try to do a little bit better by saying that, hey, that this, what is mythology to one may very well be the sincerely held religious belief of someone else. From my perspective, they are all mythologic traditions, whether they are believed in as the truth by someone or not. So I tend to, again, separate myself out of the camps of believers in that case, and try to look at them all as, okay, these are stories handed down generation to generation in one way or another. Some of those have taken off and become more popular or more prominent than others, while some have died out. But even in the case where you think that maybe some of those have died out, maybe they haven't entirely, and that's okay too. But I will continue to look at those things as traditions that that speak to a spiritual belief, as opposed to a how should I put it, like a real world or scientific or materialistic based system. Yep.
I think like at the end of the day, you and I, when we do podcasts, sometimes, we have to think on our feet. We have to think in a very either well planned out, well methodical, or sometimes we have to just improvise as the conversation informs us. And sometimes, not every single time, we're only human, and we're not going to be able to address respectfully every single person's belief system exactly the way that person wants us to address every single person's belief system, whether it's religion, whether it's politics, whether it's sexuality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think the bottom line is that we accept the fact that we're going to try.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's why this exists. That's why you can email us at missionlog@roddenberry.com. That's why you can send us messages at Facebook and Twitter at missionlogpod. You can do exactly what Gene did and say, but here's the thing that I got out of this. Here's the thing that I believe. I think back to the very earliest days of Mission Log, and Rod had sent me a website that was chock full. It was like the religious, spiritual aspects of Star Trek. And I was like, great. I'm glad that somebody did that, because then they did the legwork of the topics that were important to them, that they got out of it. Now it's time for us to come over here and do our thing. And that's what we're doing. And you can, of course, subscribe to us at youtube.com/roddenberryprod. Pick up the Mission Log Engage playlist. And remember, however it is that you decide to get in touch with us and engage, we may engage right back to your comments on the air.